Queensland Reds season for 2021. How's it looking? Have a quick look at the squad, where their odds are at in terms of their predicted spot for Super Rugby AU. And you guys can let me know your thoughts. Fixtures list as well, I guess, is a feature. But yeah, you guys can let me know thoughts on how you think the Reds are going to go. I think the key point is this first one, and this apparently wasn't guaranteed last year. Brad Thorne's been in charge for, 3 full seasons now? And he finally got his side to a final last year, albeit an AU final. But I think we've seen over the course of the years, he's certainly trimmed the fat. He's gotten rid of any players he didn't want around. I guess he's not everybody's favourite in that he did have a few guys kind of jump ship on him, last year with the whole potential pay cuts thing. But it seems to be Brad's way or the highway, and he's got that core squad with him, which I'll go over in a second. But the fact that he was willing to stay on for another year and continue this project, I think, is only a good thing. Maybe in terms of expectations, especially in Super Rugby AU, with there only being 5 teams, they would certainly be expected, at least by some of their fans, to maybe get their hands on some silverware. We'll have to wait and see how they go. They have lost a few players. They've lost JP Smith. He's gone over to the MLR, but they've retained Tani Alatupo. They've still got Xander, who we saw a wee bit of last season. Harry Hooper's become pretty familiar. Fotuaika, I think, played a few games, or was it more than that? Maybe it was more than that. He's a bit of a unit, and they've signed, at least brought him from a wider, NRC level or Bond University, apparently, is what the listing says. Zane Nongor, I do not know him, but anyone who's got any insights, do let me know. Queensland scrum's been pretty good for most of the time that Brad's been in charge, and prior to when Brad was in charge. It's been an area they've not really had that much trouble with. It's been unleashing some of the backs that sometimes has been a bit of an issue. They've still got Brendan Paenga-Mosa, although all the talk is about him going to potentially Montpellier after this season's done. Murphy and Nasser are the other guys. Ed Craig's gone to the Rebels. Matt Fassler is there. Again, he's one of the guys who signed over from Brothers, so he's coming from some club rugby. In terms of, I've got A3 paper here, which is horrendously sized. Locks, Blythe is still there, Salakai Aloto is still there, although he may shift between lock and loose forward. And Tualima is there. They've brought in Ryan Smith from club rugby, likewise Ben Grant. They did lose Isaac Rodder when I was talking earlier about the guys who kind of jumped ship on him. Isaac Rodder was one of those, which was really gutting, man. That was pretty disappointing that he decided to leave, but I'm sure we don't know the full story about that. And Harry Hawkins was another one who decided to leave as well. But yeah, Blythe has looked the business, and Salakai Aloto is proper Wallabies player, lock, loose forward, so more dynamic than your average lock. Good guy to have around. Lucy's, you've still got Fraser McCrate. Remember, he was in the Wallabies at the end of last season. Good open side. Angus Scott Young was it him that kind of seemed to fall out of favour a little bit down the pecking order last season? Harry Wilson's there. He made the Wallabies as well. Proper dynamic number 8, like guy who loves to play number 8, loves to run the ball. Very big ticker on him, and I can only see a bright future for him based on the development that we've seen of him over the last kind of 18 months. Liam Wright is captain. He's also injured. He's injured for 2 months, I think. Was it that long? It's ages. Very bad ankle injury is going to keep him out for at least a sizable chunk of the start of the season. So, yeah, that's pretty bad news for Reds fans. Sam Wallace is one of the guys who's come in from club rugby. They've also got Seru Uru, who I can't remember from last year. There we go. I'm guessing Harry Wilson's probably the man who made more impact on my brain. Anyway, too many rugby teams. Scrum half, so halfback. Tate McDermott, a.k.a. Haircut, is kind of your main guy. And he was the scrum half of Super Rugby AU last year, man. He was just really good. Some people say his pass is too slow. Like, of all the skills that he's got them in spades, but the one he doesn't excel at is his pass. So that's going to be one I'm going to have to pay kind of closer attention to. Like, sometimes you see scrum halves with a really nice pass. Like, Aaron Smith is obviously the guy you think of when you think, at least the guy who I think of. Like, you think really good pass. you think Aaron Smith. You think really good box kick. You think like Pete Conor Murray from Ireland. But Tate McDermott, he's got a bit of everything. Good sniping runs. Chooses his attacking options pretty well. Kind of runs the show. Good little kicking game. He loves a quick tap. He's a good player. He didn't seem to do enough to get up the pecking order with Dave Rennie, but another season of Super Rugby under his belt certainly can't hurt. Sarovi will likely be the backup. They've also brought in Kalani Thomas from Club Rugby. Scott Malalua has hung up the boots, actually. I saw on Wikipedia that he'd retired, and I thought, well, he's not that old. International for Samoa, I think. And, he's decided he was cut from the squad. He's decided to retire. He's like 27, I think. So that's a bit of a pity, but I guess it happens. Other backs, you've still got James O'Connor. He will be 10, kind of undoubtedly. Bryce Hegarty will probably be the backup 10, but also fullback if he gets a chance in the starting 15. Otherwise, he'll probably be riding the pine. They've brought in Lawson Creighton from Club Rugby, who I'm not that familiar with. Well, when I say not that familiar with, I mean not familiar with at all. Also, they have brought in another Creighton. That's Hudson from the same club. So I'm guessing those guys are brothers. You can tell I researched this video really well. Hunter Paisami is your midfielder alongside Jordan Pataya and Hamish Stewart. Those are probably the main three guys. Pataya may end up in the outside backs. If he can stay fit, he is raw talent, man. He's quick. He can beat a tackle. Defensive game still needs a bit of work, but he is probably what you would call like elite level. Hamish Stewart is a guy who I always think looks bad, but when I see his numbers, like, I'm a bit of a stats guy, he always puts up really good numbers. He's really deceptive. He doesn't look like he's doing much. My brain's telling me he's rubbish, but when I look at his sheet, like the number of tackles he got and whatnot, he's always pretty impressive. And for a guy who's not that big, he's defensively pretty sound. So, I don't know. Maybe sometimes I need to look at his numbers and then go back and watch a game to see if it actually reflects. Because stats can be a bit deceiving. Like maybe he made 18 tackles, but was he still conceding 5 meters on each tackle kind of thing? Were they dominant tackles? Probably not. But I don't know. Maybe that's one thing to go back and look for. And Hunter Paisami, again, kind of on the fringe of that Wallabies squad. Last year, got a bit of game time. Pretty all-round player. Solid defensively. Again, still needs a bit of work at the elite level, but heaps of potential. Not the same attacking threat as Pataya, but again, he's getting there as well. They've also got Josh Fluke, who I'm not sure, did he play last year? I feel like I know his name, but anyway, he's apparently signed up from Club Rugby. And Isaac Henry, who is in the same boat. Otherwise, we've also got Jock Campbell, who pretty much had a hold on that fullback spot last year. He was another one of those young Reds guys, man. There's so many that Brad's brought through. That he looked good enough to me, maybe a future Wallaby, but again, his game's still developing. They've still got Dalgunu, and he got his Wallabies chance. Wee bit hot and cold at Wallabies level, but still needs more time. Definitely a big attacking threat. They've brought in Dro Sese from Club Rugby. I do not know about him, but I will certainly take any feedback on what he's like. And they've brought in Suliasi Vunivalu from Rugby League. And he is the man that everybody's going to be watching. Heaps and heaps of pressure on him. Much like when Roger Tuivasa-Sheck starts in Rugby Union at the end of this year. Vunivalu's going to have it straight off the bat at Super Rugby level. So huge expectations on him. There's already, he's already got Dave Rennie interested in him for the Wallabies. So huge pressure on him. But by all accounts, I do not watch in any league virtually to comment. But I've seen highlights of him and he looks pretty good. So good under the high ball from what I've seen. I know Israel Folau also had an AFL background, but maybe that's another thing that seemed to mesh pretty well with the game in Union, like how good he was at getting those high balls. So hopefully Vunivalu can add a bit of that, plus a bit of gas. They've also added Mac Greeley from Club Rugby, who I do not know. Henry Spate obviously left. That was like before Super Rugby AU started. I think he got an early release. Chris Feawaisotia has left, which is pretty disappointing because I always felt like he was another guy who was really good, but always kind of overlooked at Wallabies level. Maybe he's that guy who's on the fringe of being an international player but doesn't quite make it. Isaac Lucas was another one of those guys who left with the big stoush with old Brad. But yeah, that is the Red squad for 2021. So the core is still there. You've still got Liam Wright out for a substantial period, which is a huge hole to fill. But Brad seems to have a knack for unearthing some talent and then nurturing its way through. When I say nurturing its way through, I would say it's making them go to the gym and then tackle their hearts out, because he doesn't like players who can't tackle. In terms of the fixtures list, I think they've got a pretty decent run. Like I wrote decent fixtures list. They start at home to the Waratahs and then they're home to the Rebels. Like they would be expecting to get 2 wins from those first 2 games at home. Then they've got the bye in round 3. They do have the Brumbies away next, which will maybe be a big test for them, because the Brumbies are still favourites in the competition this year. Force at home, then Tars and Rebels away, Brumbies at home. If they lose the first Brumbies game, that's going to be a big one. Then a bye, which is not a bad time to have a bye. Then the Force away. It'll be interesting to see if we end up travelling to Perth or not with COVID restrictions and whatnot, but hopefully. And then potentially on to some playoff games for the Reds. I think the fixtures list kind of works for them. The byes are decently placed. They've got a couple of home games to get started with, so they should be able to get onto the front foot. And then by the time they've got a few away games, especially those Waratahs and Reds ones, they should hopefully be on a bit of a roll. In terms of predictions, they are the second favourite with the bookies. So I think the bookies odds are pretty much the same as the way they finished last year, which is often the way the betting patterns go. But yeah, I hope they can kick on. I would like to see the Reds get the title. I mean, I'm a bit of a neutral on that, but I feel like it'd be nice to give Brad a bit of silverware to reward him for all that time and effort he's put back into Aussie rugby. I think he's turned the Reds franchise around, but I know it's been pretty painful, and he's maybe lost a few supporters on the way. People were pretty pissed off, when he cut Quaid loose, and as I said, a bunch of other guys left the squad as well. So he's definitely doing it his way. But I think you've seen the amount of guys that he's brought through that have been capped by the Wallabies shows you that the time he's putting in is contributing to Aussie rugby as a whole. But I don't know, I'm sure it's not just him. There's things going on in the clubs, there's things going on in NRC. It's certainly not just all Brad, but he, at the Super Rugby level, he is certainly recognising the talent and playing them with the minutes that they need. So yeah, it's like 4 more minutes than I did on the Waratahs. Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts on the Red squad. How do you think they are going to go in 2021? Do you think they can topple the Brumbies? Do you see it all going to custard suddenly? I swear it's on a decent trajectory, but correct me if you think that is incorrect. Anyway, Super Rugby AU is not too far away. Pretty pumped for it. Hope you guys are as well. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.